Good morning, everybody. Now, a magistrate in the United Kingdom has been removed from office after challenging the government's actions in the lockdown era. So, Kaira McCallum was the only magistrate in the United Kingdom, indeed the only member of the judiciary entirely, including all the judges as well, who made any kind of challenge to the actions and everything that happened there. In fact, with another lawyer, Melinda Main, she submitted a case to the International Criminal Court in The Hague. And that case was a request for an investigation into the actions of certain members of the government and their advisors who pull the strings and coerce them into doing certain things. And the case was for them to look into crimes against humanity, genocide, and breaches of the Nuremberg Code, which is entirely reasonable to do. So that case was submitted, it was acknowledged, it was given a case number, but it was never formally accepted or denied. It's just sitting there still in The Hague. This happened in April 2021. And it goes without saying, I would imagine that the people in the government weren't particularly happy about this, weren't too happy to be challenged on the actions that they were doing. But this comes after lockdowns. It comes after the morphine midazolam scandal and what happened to 10,000 plus care home residents who were put on morphine and midazolam. And it comes after the rollout of injections. And there's all kinds of data coming out about injections at the moment, which indicate that they are nothing like the wonder cures that they were presented as at the time. So this was quite right for Kaira McCallum and Melinda Main to bring that case and to put it and submit it to the International Criminal Court so they could decide whether indeed an act of genocide, an act of crimes against humanity, or an act or actions against the Nuremberg Code did actually take place. Indeed, the judiciary in the United Kingdom is supposed to be entirely impartial. So in some respects, it can challenge even people in government if they need to do so. So it's not just that one person should be making this kind of case and submitting the evidence. Everyone in the judiciary would honestly have a duty to submit evidence if they saw something being done which was wrong or which they thought was wrong. It goes to the court, then they can decide to investigate and do something about it. They haven't, but the case was submitted. Now, I know Kaira McCallum quite well, and I'm very, very proud to know her, and I'm proud of what she's done in making this challenge and submitting this case so that it can bring into the open evidence of what happened at the time and potentially put people on trial and hold them to account for the decisions they've made with whatever knowledge those people had at the time, whether they were in government or whether they were advisors to the government. But she was suspended from her position as a magistrate in the central London circuit. She sat for 20 years as a magistrate at Westminster Magistrates Court. She was suspended very, very soon after that case was submitted. And yesterday there was an article in the Law Gazette. not a publication I normally read, but I think people who are in the judiciary, who are magistrates and judges and so on, would read the articles in there, because it publishes news about individual members of the judiciary, magistrates and so on, if something happens that is newsworthy, like this particular case here. Concerning Kaira McCallum and her investigation and her suspension. And now she's actually been properly removed from the bench by two people who make the decisions after the investigation, which are the Lord Chancellor and the Lord Chief Justice. Now, the Lord Chief Justice at the moment is someone called the Right Honourable the Lord Burnet of Malden. Never heard of him. The Lord Chancellor, however, is Dominic Raab, someone that a lot of people have heard of, who was in the government at the time. So the case that was brought would possibly have put him or people around him in the government at the time on trial and held to account. It's rather bizarre that the person who is directly involved or potentially directly involved in the case can make the decision to remove the magistrate from the bench who brought the case. Just implies that this country, as I said, is a bit of a banana republic with arbitrary and summary justice and decision making about certain people's careers and so on. A career as a magistrate has been ended because someone brought a very reasonable case against, or let's say after she brought a very reasonable case challenging the actions of the government. Now, the reasons that were given as to why she was removed from the bench are not because she brought the case, therefore a couple of other things. So let's be very clear, they're not removing her from the bench, as they say, because she brought a case to the ICC. They're removing her for two other things. One is that, actually, one is slightly related. It's that she used the suffix JP when she brought the case. So she submitted the case to the ICC, and instead of saying Kaira McCallum, she said Kaira McCallum, JP. And apparently they're saying that that was conduct that amounted to a serious breach of important guidance on judicial impartiality and of guidance issued to magistrates about the use of the suffix JP. To me, that sounds like a bit of a storm in a teacup because, you know, she submitted the case. She is a JP. Whether she wrote she was a JP or not on the submission to the ICC, everybody could have found out that she was a JP anyway. But they're saying because she wrote she's a JP on the submission to the ICC, then that's potentially something that could do harm to the reputation of the judiciary. To me, that just sounds like a load of nonsense, but that's what's in the article in the Law Gazette. And the other thing they say is something that is a bit obscure, and it doesn't seem to be particularly related. It says she was also found to have sent a highly inappropriate email to a senior manager in Her Majesty's Courts and Tribunal Services who had issued information to staff and judiciary about COVID safety measures. So that's the second ground on which she is being removed from the bench. I mean, this seems to be completely unrelated to the case. She sent a letter. It doesn't say what the letter was about, but it says that in the same sentence that the person she sent a letter to had issued safety information or information about COVID safety measures. Well, I mean, I imagine that she hadn't had a vaccine or hadn't worn a mask or didn't take a stick up the nose. I don't know, but that seems to be implying that she was just doing all the kind of sensible things, and as I would do in avoiding potential health risks. We now know those things do have health risks, and I think anybody who used their critical thinking and critical judgment at the time to avoid those kind of things, injections, etc., is actually very, very wise. It doesn't say that in the Law Gazette article, but it does say it's related to something to do with safety measures. Completely bizarre thing to put in terms of removing someone from the bench as a magistrate after 20 years of good and exemplary service on the basis that she said she was a JP when she is a JP, and she wrote a letter to somebody. And then you get fired for your job for that. What a load of absolute nonsense. Anyway, I'm just putting this video out because I hope that this will get more coverage than just what's the article there in the Law Gazette, which is the specialist paper for the judiciary to read about themselves and what's going on within their own little bubble, if you like, their own profession, because Kaira McCallum did stand up for the people and against what was clearly now actions that are very, very questionable by the regime in the United Kingdom at the time. And it's absolutely right that they are held to account for their actions. We need more people like Kaira McCallum, not fewer, more people to stand up and challenge tyranny, and to stand up for freedom and stand up against bad things that have been happening.